The sensor officer on duty that night was named Veth. He had worked at Outpost Kiran for 11 years, watching the endless darkness of space at the edge of Valorian territory. Nothing ever happened here. Ships came and went on scheduled routes. Traders passed through with proper documentation. Military vessels patrolled in predictable patterns. The job was boring, and Veth liked it that way. So when his console lit up with an unknown contact, he assumed it was a malfunction. He ran diagnostics. The equipment was functioning perfectly. He ran them again. Same result. Something had just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of his sensor range, and his systems could not identify it. Veth leaned forward in his chair and studied the readings. The object was small, roughly the size of a frigate. It was moving at sublight speed toward the inner systems. Its hull composition did not match any known material in the Imperial database. Its energy signature was unlike anything he had ever seen. Most strangely, it was not broadcasting any identification codes, not responding to automated hails, and not following any established travel lane. He contacted his supervisor. Within the hour, the report had climbed the chain of command to Regional Fleet Command. Within 2 hours, it had reached Imperial Central on the throne world of Valoria Prime. Within 3 hours, it sat on the desk of High Commander Zorath, supreme military leader of the Valorian Empire. Zorath read the report with mild irritation. He was a busy man. The Empire spanned 18,000 star systems and controlled 400 subject species. He had rebellions to suppress, borders to maintain, and a military of 60 million personnel to manage. A single unidentified vessel at the edge of nowhere did not deserve his attention. He summoned Admiral Keth, his second in command. "Send 3 cruisers to intercept," Zorath ordered. "Disable the vessel and bring it here for study. I want to know who built it and why they are in our space without permission." Admiral Keth bowed and left to carry out the order. Zorath returned to more important matters and forgot about the strange ship entirely. The 3 cruisers dispatched to intercept were the Vengeful, the Dominant, and the Unyielding. Each was a standard Valorian war cruiser, crewed by 800 personnel and armed with enough firepower to glass a small moon. Their captains were experienced officers who had served the Empire faithfully for decades. They approached the unknown vessel in standard triangle formation, weapons charged and shields raised. Captain Morath of the Vengeful broadcast the first hail. "Unknown vessel, you have entered Valorian space without authorization. Cut your engines and prepare to be boarded. Failure to comply will result in your destruction." There was no response. Captain Morath tried again. He cycled through every known language in the Imperial database. He broadcast on every frequency. He even tried mathematical patterns that any spacefaring civilization should recognize. The unknown vessel continued on its course as if the 3 cruisers did not exist. "Arrogant," muttered Captain Vorak of the Dominant. "They think they can ignore the Valorian Empire." "Perhaps their communications are damaged," suggested Captain Leth of the Unyielding. "Or perhaps they simply do not understand." "It does not matter," said Captain Morath. "We have our orders. Disable them." The 3 cruisers opened fire. Valorian weapons technology was the most advanced in the known galaxy. Their plasma cannons could burn through the strongest armor. Their missile systems could track and destroy targets across vast distances. Their beam weapons could slice through enemy vessels like knives through flesh. The combined firepower of 3 cruisers should have reduced the small unknown vessel to scattered atoms. The beams and plasma bolts crossed the distance between the ships in seconds. They struck the unknown vessel directly, and they did nothing. Captain Morath stared at his display in disbelief. The unknown vessel was surrounded by a shimmering field of energy that had absorbed the entire barrage without apparent effect. It was still moving, still on course, still ignoring them completely. "Increase power," he ordered. "All weapons, maximum output." The 3 cruisers fired again. They poured everything they had into the assault. For 30 seconds, the unknown vessel was engulfed in fire and light and fury. When the barrage ended, it emerged unharmed. Then it moved. Captain Morath had served in the Imperial Navy for 40 years. He had fought pirates and rebels in alien fleets. He had seen fast ships before. He had never seen anything move like this. The unknown vessel accelerated so quickly that it seemed to simply vanish from one location and appear in another. It passed between the three cruisers like a ghost, weaving through their formation with impossible precision. Captain Morris tried to track it, tried to order his weapons officers to follow, but it was too fast. His targeting systems could not lock on. His gunners could not aim quickly enough. And then something struck the Vengeful. There was no explosion. There was no impact. One moment the ship was intact, and the next moment its main weapon batteries were simply gone. Not destroyed, not damaged. Gone. Removed as cleanly as if they had been surgically extracted. Captain Morath felt the ship shudder as its engines died. Power fluctuations rippled through every system. In less than 10 seconds, the Vengeful went from a functioning warship to a drifting hulk. The same thing was happening to the other two cruisers. Captain Vorak screamed into his communicator that the Dominant was losing power, that its weapons were gone, that it could not move. Captain Leth reported the same from the Unyielding. All three ships were disabled, dead in space, their crews alive but helpless. The unknown vessel continued on its course toward the inner systems without slowing down. Captain Morath sat in his command chair and stared at his dark displays. His ship was crippled. His weapons were gone. His engines were dead. But his crew was alive. Every single one of them was alive. Whatever had attacked them had been precise enough to destroy only the systems needed to stop them, and nothing more. This was not combat, he realized. This was a message. The reports from the three cruisers reached Imperial Central 4 hours later. High Commander Zorath read them in silence, his face growing darker with each line. When he finished, he set the data pad down and stared at the wall for a long moment. "This is impossible," he said finally. Admiral Keth stood at attention before him. "The reports are verified, High Commander. All three captains confirmed the same events. The unknown vessel disabled them in under 90 seconds without taking any damage itself. Our weapons had no effect. We could not track it. We could not stop it." "What species built this ship?" "Unknown, High Commander. Its design does not match any known civilization." "What sector did it come from?" "The Far Arm, High Commander. The unexplored territories beyond the Cathori Reach." Zorath stood and walked to the great window that overlooked the capital city. Billions of Valorians lived their lives below, secure in the knowledge that the Empire protected them. For 12,000 years, the Valorian Empire had dominated this galaxy. They had conquered every species that challenged them. They had crushed every rebellion. They had built the greatest civilization in known history. And now a single unknown vessel had humiliated 3 of their cruisers without even acknowledging their presence. "Find out who they are," Zorath ordered. "Search every database, every archive, every record we have. Someone knows where this ship came from. I want answers." Admiral Keth bowed. "And the vessel itself, High Commander?" "It is still moving toward the inner systems." Zorath turned to face him. His expression was hard. "Assemble the Third Fleet, 200 warships. I will lead them personally. Whatever this vessel is, whoever sent it, they will learn what happens when you challenge the Valorian Empire." Admiral Keth hesitated. 200 ships for a single vessel, High Commander? "You saw the reports? 3 cruisers were not enough. I will not underestimate this enemy again. Assemble the fleet. We leave within the day." As Admiral Keth hurried to carry out his orders, Zorath remained at the window. He was not afraid. He had never been afraid of anything in his long career. But he was troubled by something he could not quite name. The unknown vessel had disabled his cruisers without killing anyone. Every crew member had survived. Every life had been spared. A ship that powerful could have destroyed them instantly. But it had chosen not to. Why? What kind of enemy demonstrated its power and then showed mercy? Zorath did not know, and that uncertainty bothered him more than he wanted to admit. The Valorian Empire had not faced a true threat in centuries. They had grown comfortable in their dominance, secure in their superiority. Perhaps that comfort had been a mistake. He pushed the thought aside and focused on the task ahead. 200 warships would be more than enough. They would intercept this mysterious vessel, destroy it, and learn its secrets from the wreckage. The Empire would prove once again that no power in the galaxy could challenge Valorian might. He told himself this with complete confidence. But deep in his mind, in a place he would never acknowledge, a small voice whispered that everything was about to change. The archives of Imperial intelligence occupied an entire continent on the moon of Valoria Secundus. Billions of records were stored there, covering every species the Empire had ever encountered, every world they had surveyed, every civilization they had studied or conquered. The archivists who worked there spent their lives organizing and maintaining this vast collection of knowledge, and they took great pride in their work. Junior archivist Thelen was 23 years old and had worked in the archives for only 2 years. She was assigned to the Historical Survey Division, where she spent her days cataloging old exploration reports from centuries past. It was not glamorous work. Most of the records she handled described dead worlds or primitive species that had never developed spaceflight, but she found satisfaction in the details, in piecing together the history of the galaxy, one file at a time. When the priority request came from Imperial Central, every archivist in the building dropped what they were doing. The order was simple: find any record that might explain the unknown vessel that had entered Valorian space. Search every database. Check every file. The High Commander himself wanted answers. Thelen worked through the night with thousands of her colleagues. They searched military records and diplomatic files and scientific surveys. They cross-referenced hull compositions and energy signatures and propulsion systems. They compared the unknown vessel's design to every ship ever recorded in Valorian history. They found nothing. By morning, frustration had set in. The senior archivists were arguing with each other. The supervisors were receiving angry calls from Imperial Central demanding results. Everyone was tired and confused and beginning to lose hope. Thelen took a different approach. She focused on the one piece of information they had: the vessel's point of origin. It had come from the far arm of the galaxy, from the unexplored territories beyond the Cathori Reach. Very few Valorian ships had ever traveled to that region. It was too distant, too empty, too unimportant to warrant attention. But someone must have gone there at some point. Someone must have surveyed those distant stars and recorded what they found. Thelen dug into the oldest records she could find. She searched through exploration logs from 300 years ago, 400 years ago, 500 years ago. Most of them described barren systems and lifeless rocks, but eventually, buried in a forgotten archive that had not been accessed in centuries, she found something interesting. A survey ship called the Observer had traveled to the far arm 317 years ago. It had been a routine mission to catalog stars and planets in that region. The ship had spent 2 years in the distant territories before returning home with its findings. Most of the Observer's reports were unremarkable: asteroid fields, gas giants, frozen worlds with no signs of life. But one entry caught Thelen's attention. The Observer had discovered a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. The planet was covered with water and teeming with primitive life. More importantly, it was home to an intelligent species that had developed basic technology. They had cities and vehicles and rudimentary electronic communications. They called themselves humans. Thelen read the survey report carefully. The humans had been assessed as unremarkable. They were short-lived creatures with fragile bodies and limited strength. They had not developed spaceflight. They had not discovered faster-than-light travel. They were confined to their single world with no means of reaching the stars. The survey team had classified them as a Level 2 civilization, meaning they were intelligent but posed no threat and offered no value. The report recommended no further contact. The humans were simply too primitive to matter. But there was more. Thelen found a secondary file attached to the survey report. It was marked with the seal of Imperial Biological Research, and it was classified at a level that junior archivists were not supposed to access. Under normal circumstances, she would have flagged it for a senior colleague and moved on. These were not normal circumstances. She opened the file. What she found made her blood run cold. Standard Imperial protocol for newly discovered species included biological sampling. When the Observer found the humans, it had followed procedure. A small collection team had descended to the planet's surface during local nighttime hours. They had taken samples, but they had not taken tissue samples or blood samples or genetic material in the usual sense. They had taken living specimens. The file recorded the capture of 247 humans from various locations on their planet. Men, women, children. They had been sedated and transported to the Observer's cargo hold. Their disappearances had been concealed by staging accidents and natural disasters. The primitive humans had no way of knowing that their missing people had been taken to the stars. The specimens had been brought back to Valoria for study. Imperial scientists had wanted to understand human biology, human psychology, human potential. The research had continued for years, and the file included references to experiments that Thelen did not want to read about. Most of the human specimens had died during the research process, but some had survived. Some had been kept alive and bred in captivity. Their descendants still existed somewhere in the Empire's biological repositories, maintained as genetic resources for future study. Thelen sat back in her chair and stared at the screen. Her hands were shaking. The unknown vessel had come from the direction of the human homeworld. Its technology was centuries beyond anything the Empire possessed, and it had appeared exactly 317 years after the Empire had stolen 247 humans from their planet. She understood now. This was not a random encounter. This was not an exploration mission or a first contact situation. This was a reckoning. She immediately contacted her supervisor and reported her findings. Within the hour, her discovery had reached Imperial Central. Within 2 hours, it was on High Commander Zorath's desk. He read the files in silence. When he finished, he looked up at Admiral Keth with an expression that was difficult to read. "This cannot be correct," he said. "These humans were primitives. They had not even reached their own moon when we found them. How could they have developed this level of technology in 3 centuries? Admiral Keth shook his head. "I do not know, High Commander. Perhaps the survey was wrong. Perhaps they were further advanced than we realized." "The survey was thorough. I have read it myself. They were burning fossil fuels for energy. They were killing each other with chemical projectile weapons. They were a level 2 civilization at best. No species advances this quickly. It is impossible. And yet the vessel exists. It disabled 3 cruisers without effort. Its technology is beyond our understanding." Zorath stood and paced his office. He was trying to find an explanation that made sense, but nothing fit. The humans had been primitive. The survey data was clear. And yet somehow, in just over 300 years, they had developed technology that surpassed the Valorian Empire's 12,000 years of advancement. It was not just impossible, it was terrifying. "There is another matter," Admiral Keth said carefully. "The biological research files, the specimens that were taken." Zorath stopped pacing. "What of them? If the humans know we took their people, they may be seeking revenge. This vessel may be the beginning of a war we cannot win. We do not know that they know. High Commander, with respect, their vessel came directly from their homeworld to our space. It has been moving toward the inner systems since it arrived. It disabled our ships without killing anyone, as if it wanted to send a message without starting a fight. These are not the actions of random explorers. These are the actions of someone looking for something specific." Zorath considered this. The Admiral's logic was sound. If the humans had somehow discovered what happened to their missing people 3 centuries ago, they would have every reason to seek justice. And if their technology was as advanced as it appeared, they might actually be capable of achieving it. But the Valorian Empire did not surrender. The Valorian Empire did not apologize. For 12,000 years, they had taken what they wanted from lesser species without consequence. They would not change that now because of one ship from one primitive world. "The fleet is assembled," Zorath said. 200 warships. Whatever these humans want, they will not get it. We will intercept their vessel, destroy it, and send a clear message that the Valorian Empire is not to be challenged." Admiral Keth hesitated. "And if we cannot destroy it, if it is as powerful as the reports suggest, then we will learn its weaknesses and try again. But we will not show fear. We will not negotiate. We are Valorians. We do not bow to anyone." The Admiral bowed and left to prepare for departure. Zorath remained alone in his office. He walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, a single human vessel was moving toward the heart of his empire. Its crew knew what his people had done 3 centuries ago. They had come seeking answers, or justice, or revenge. And despite his confident words to Admiral Keth, Zorath was beginning to wonder if his fleet of 200 warships would be enough. The humans had been primitive once. But they were not primitive anymore. And that changed everything. The Third Fleet of the Valorian Empire was a magnificent sight. 200 warships arranged in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under the light of distant stars. Battleships and cruisers and destroyers moved together like a single organism, their engines burning bright against the darkness of space. At the center of the formation flew the flagship Eternal Dominion, the personal vessel of High Commander Zorath himself. They had been traveling for 6 days, moving to intercept the unknown human vessel before it could reach the inner systems. Scout ships had tracked its course and calculated where it would be. The fleet had positioned itself in the Kethori Nebula, a vast cloud of gas and dust that would provide cover for their approach. Zorath stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion and watched the tactical display. The human vessel was still hours away, moving at a steady pace through open space. It had not changed course or speed since entering Valorian territory. It had not responded to any communications. It simply continued forward, as if the massive fleet waiting to destroy it did not exist. "All ships report ready, High Commander," Admiral Keth announced. "Weapons charged, shields at maximum. We are prepared for your order." Zorath nodded. "Open a channel to the human vessel. Perhaps they will see reason." The communications officer worked at her console. A moment later, she confirmed the connection was open. Zorath straightened his uniform and spoke in a clear, commanding voice. "Unknown vessel, this is High Commander Zorath of the Valorian Empire. You have entered our sovereign territory without authorization. You have attacked and disabled 3 Imperial cruisers. These are acts of war. I am giving you one final opportunity to surrender. Power down your engines, drop your shields, and prepare to be boarded. If you refuse, you will be destroyed. You have 60 seconds to comply." Silence. The tactical display showed the human vessel continuing forward without any change. Zorath waited. 30 seconds passed. 45 seconds. 1 minute. "No response, High Commander," the communications officer reported. "Then they have made their choice." Zorath's voice was cold. "All ships, open fire." 200 warships unleashed their fury simultaneously. The darkness of space lit up with plasma fire and missile contrails and beam weapons. The combined firepower of the Third Fleet could have devastated a continent. It poured toward the small human vessel like a tsunami of destruction. The human vessel's shields flickered to life. The same shimmering field that had protected it from the first attack now surrounded it completely. The barrage struck the field and simply stopped. Plasma bolts vanished into nothing. Missiles detonated harmlessly against the barrier. Beam weapons bent around the vessel as if deflected by an invisible hand. Not a single shot reached the hull. "Increase power," Zorath ordered. "All ships, maximum output, everything we have." The fleet complied. For 30 seconds, they poured every weapon they possessed into the assault. The energy being released was almost beyond measurement. If that power had been directed at a planet, it would have stripped away the atmosphere and boiled the oceans. The human vessel emerged from the barrage completely unharmed. Then it began to move. Zorath had reviewed the reports from the first engagement. He thought he understood what to expect. He was wrong. The human vessel accelerated with impossible speed, crossing the distance between itself and the fleet in moments. It weaved through the formation like a predator moving through a herd of prey, too fast to track, too agile to target, and it began to take the fleet apart. Ship after ship went dark. The human vessel would pass near a battleship, and suddenly that battleship's weapons would be gone. It would swing past a cruiser, and that cruiser's engines would fail. It would loop around a destroyer, and that destroyer would lose all power. The attacks were surgical, precise, almost artistic. No shots were fired, no explosions occurred. The Imperial ships were simply being disassembled while their crews watched helplessly. "Fire everything," Zorath shouted. "All weapons, all directions. Blanket fire." The surviving ships tried to comply, but they could not hit what they could not track. The human vessel was never where their weapons expected it to be. It moved in patterns that seemed to anticipate every shot, every missile, every beam. The fleet's most advanced targeting systems were useless against it. Within 11 minutes, it was over. 200 warships drifted dead in space. Their weapons were gone. Their engines were cold. Their shields had failed. But their crews were alive, every single one of them. The human vessel had disabled the entire Third Fleet without killing a single Valorian. Zorath stood alone on the dark bridge of the Eternal Dominion. Emergency lighting cast red shadows across his face. His crew worked frantically at dead consoles, trying to restore some function to the crippled ship. In all his years of service and all his experience with combat and war, he had never seen anything like this. Then the communications console flickered to life. A single message came through on every frequency, broadcast to every ship in the fleet. "We did not come here to fight you. We came to find the ones you took." The voice was calm and clear, speaking perfect Valorian without any accent. Zorath stared at the console as if it had betrayed him. "Respond," he ordered. "Open a channel. I will speak with them." The communications officer managed to establish a connection. Zorath gathered what remained of his dignity and spoke. "This is High Commander Zorath. I am listening. 317 years ago, your people came to our world. You took 247 of our citizens, men, women, children. You stole them from their families and brought them here. We have come to bring them home." Zorath felt something cold settle in his chest. The archivist's report had been correct. The humans knew exactly what had happened. They had crossed the galaxy not for conquest or exploration, but for their people. "Those specimens were taken for legitimate scientific research," Zorath said, falling back on procedure. "It was standard protocol for contact with newly discovered species." "Specimens." The voice repeated the word without emotion. "You call them specimens. They were people. They had names and families and lives, and you took them. That was 3 centuries ago. The individuals responsible are long dead. But your empire is not dead. Your government is not dead. Your institutions that made those decisions are not dead. And some of our people's descendants still live in your research facilities. We have tracked their genetic signatures. We know where they are." Zorath had no answer for this. The humans had done their research. They knew more about what had happened than most Valorians did. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "We want our people back. All of them. Everyone you took and everyone descended from them. We want complete records of what was done to them. And we want your empire to recognize humanity as equals in galactic affairs." "Impossible. The Valorian Empire does not negotiate with lesser species." "Lesser." Again the voice repeated his word. "You called us primitive 3 centuries ago. Level 2 civilization, your record said. Too backward to matter. And yet here we are. One ship has disabled your entire fleet without killing anyone. Do you still think we are lesser?" Zorath said nothing. "We did not come to destroy you. We came to retrieve what was stolen from us. We have shown restraint. We have spared every life we could. But our patience is not infinite. Return our people or face the consequences." The communication ended. The human vessel moved past the disabled fleet and continued toward the inner systems, toward the throne world of Valoria Prime. Zorath watched it go. He had no way to stop it. He had no way to warn his emperor. The most powerful fleet in the galaxy had been rendered helpless in minutes, and the human vessel had not even slowed down. For the first time in his long career, High Commander Zorath understood what it felt like to be completely outmatched. The Valorian Empire had dominated the galaxy for 12,000 years because no one could challenge their military power. Now that power meant nothing. The humans were coming, and there was nothing he could do about it. He sat down in his command chair and stared at the emergency lights flickering around him. His ships were dead. His weapons were gone. His pride was shattered. And somewhere in the distance, a single human vessel was carrying a message that would change the galaxy forever. "We came to find the ones you took." Those words would haunt him for the rest of his life. Emperor Kaldros VII had ruled the Valorian Empire for 112 years. He had overseen the conquest of 47 worlds, the suppression of 12 major rebellions, and the expansion of imperial territory by 15%. He was considered one of the greatest emperors in Valorian history, a wise and powerful leader who had brought glory to his people. Now he sat in his private chambers and read the reports from the Cathori Nebula with growing horror. 200 warships, the entire Third Fleet, disabled in 11 minutes by a single vessel. Not a single enemy killed, not a single Imperial soldier dead. The humans had demonstrated their power with terrifying precision, and they had shown mercy even while doing so. This was not a military defeat. This was a message. The emperor summoned his council. They gathered in the great hall of the imperial palace, the most powerful beings in the galaxy sitting around a table of polished stone. Military commanders, intelligence chiefs, scientific advisors, diplomatic specialists, they had ruled the stars for millennia. Now they faced something they had never encountered before. The humans demand the return of their people, the emperor said, all those taken 3 centuries ago and all their descendants. They also demand full records of the research conducted on them and recognition as equals in galactic affairs. General Vorath, commander of Imperial ground forces, slammed his fist on the table. We do not negotiate with primitives. We certainly do not surrender to a single ship. That single ship defeated 200 of our warships, Admiral Teth pointed out. It has technology we cannot understand. We have no effective weapons against it. Then we develop new weapons. We study their shields, their propulsion, their power systems. We find weaknesses and exploit them. We are Valorians. We do not surrender. The Emperor raised his hand for silence. I have already ordered the archives to prepare the biological research files. I have ordered the research division to locate all surviving human descendants in our repositories. If we must return what was taken to end this crisis, we will do so. General Vorath stood abruptly. Your Majesty, with respect, this is madness. If we surrender to these humans, every subject species in the Empire will see it. They will realize that we can be challenged. Rebellions will spread across our territory. The Empire will collapse. And if we fight, the Emperor asked, if we throw more fleets at this vessel and they are destroyed as easily as the Third Fleet, how long before our subject species realize we cannot protect them? How long before they see that our military is powerless against this enemy? The council fell silent. The Emperor had identified the core problem. Whether they fought or surrendered, the Empire's image of invincibility was already shattered. The only question was how to limit the damage. Intelligence Director Morath spoke carefully. The human vessel is still approaching the throne world. It will arrive within 2 days. We have some time to prepare a response. What response? Admiral Teth asked. What can we possibly do against a ship that ignores our weapons and moves faster than our sensors can track? We have the Celestial Lance. The room went very quiet. The Celestial Lance was the Empire's ultimate weapon. It had been built 3,000 years ago during the last Great War, when the Valorians had faced an enemy that nearly destroyed them. The Lance was a planet-killing device of immense power, capable of cracking worlds and shattering moons. It had been used exactly once in history to end that ancient war by destroying the enemy's homeworld entirely. Since then, it had been kept in reserve, hidden in a secret facility, maintained but never activated. It was the weapon of last resort, the final answer to any existential threat. The Lance is designed to destroy planets, the Emperor said slowly. Using it against a single ship would be excessive. With respect, Your Majesty, nothing else has worked, General Vorath said. This human vessel has defeated everything we have sent against it. The Lance is the only weapon we have that might be powerful enough to breach its shields. And if it fails, then we are no worse off than we are now. But if it succeeds, we eliminate the threat and send a clear message to the galaxy. Challenge the Valorian Empire, and you will be destroyed. The Emperor considered this. He did not like the idea of using the Lance. It was a weapon of desperation, and using it would reveal to the galaxy that the Empire felt desperate. But General Vorath was right about one thing. They had no other options. Prepare the Lance, he ordered, but do not fire without my direct command. I want to give the humans one more opportunity to negotiate. General Vorath nodded, but his expression suggested he had no intention of waiting for negotiations to fail. The council dispersed. The Emperor remained in the Great Hall, staring at the ancient murals that decorated the walls. They depicted the founding of the Empire, the great conquests of the past, the glory of Valorian civilization. For 12,000 years, his people had been the masters of the galaxy. Now that mastery was being challenged by a species they had dismissed as primitive and irrelevant. He wondered if his ancestors had felt this way when they first rose to power. Had they faced enemies that seemed invincible? Had they known the fear of facing a threat they could not overcome? History said the Valorians had always been strong, always been dominant, always been victorious. But history was written by the victors. Perhaps there were struggles that had been forgotten, challenges that had been erased from the records. Perhaps this was simply another test that the Empire would have to overcome. In the military command center beneath the palace, General Vorath was not waiting for imperial approval. He had served the Empire for 200 years, and he believed in the old ways. Strength and power were the foundations of Valorian dominance. Showing weakness, even once, would destroy everything they had built. He contacted the facility that housed the Celestial Lance. Begin activation sequence. Target the human vessel as soon as it enters range. General, we have not received authorization from the Emperor. I am authorizing it. The security of the Empire is at stake. Do as I command. There was a pause. Understood, General. Activation will be complete in 6 hours. Vorath ended the communication and turned to his staff. When the lance fires, the human vessel will be destroyed. The Emperor will thank us for taking action, and the galaxy will remember that the Valorian Empire does not bow to anyone. His officers nodded in agreement. They were loyal to the Empire, loyal to the old ways, loyal to the idea that strength was the only thing that mattered. None of them considered that the humans might have anticipated this response. The Celestial Lance powered up over the next 6 hours. Its massive energy collectors gathered power from the star at the center of the Valorian system. Its targeting systems locked onto the approaching human vessel. Its firing mechanisms went through final preparations. When the human vessel entered range, General Vorath gave the order. The lance fired. A beam of pure destruction lanced across space, carrying enough energy to crack a planet's crust and boil its core. It crossed the distance to the human vessel in moments, a line of blazing light that no known shield could possibly withstand. The human vessel did not try to dodge. It did not raise additional shields. Instead, it did something impossible. It caught the beam. The energy that should have destroyed it was somehow redirected, bent, turned aside. The beam curved away from the human vessel and shot off into empty space, where it struck nothing and dissipated harmlessly. General Vorath stared at his displays in disbelief. The most powerful weapon in the galaxy had been casually deflected. Then the human vessel broadcast a message to every system in the Empire simultaneously, overriding all frequencies, appearing on every screen and speaker across Valorian space. We came in peace to retrieve our lost children. You answered with genocide weapons. Now witness what humanity does when it chooses not to be merciful. The message ended. The human vessel continued toward the throne world. In the Imperial Palace, Emperor Kaldros watched the recording and felt his last hope die. General Vorath had acted without authorization, and now there would be consequences. The humans had been willing to negotiate. They had shown restraint. They had given the Empire every opportunity to make things right. And in response, the Empire had tried to destroy them with a planet-killing weapon. There would be no more negotiations. There would be no more mercy. Whatever happened next, the Empire had brought it upon themselves. The Emperor sat alone in the darkness of his chambers and waited for the end. The human vessel descended through the atmosphere of Valoria Prime on a clear morning. Millions of Valorians watched from the streets and windows and rooftops of the capital city as the small ship passed overhead. It made no aggressive moves. It fired no weapons. It simply flew toward the central plaza of the Imperial District and landed gently on the ancient stones. The Imperial Guard had surrounded the plaza with 10,000 soldiers. They carried the best weapons the Empire could produce. Artillery pieces were positioned on nearby rooftops. Attack craft hovered in the sky above. Every possible defense had been prepared. None of it would matter, and everyone knew it. The human vessel sat silently for several minutes. Then a door opened in its side, and a single figure emerged. She was small by Valorian standards, barely reaching the chest height of the average Imperial citizen. Her skin was a warm brown color, her hair was dark and cut short, and her eyes were a deep shade that seemed to hold both sadness and determination. She wore a simple gray uniform with no visible weapons or armor. She walked down the ramp from her vessel, and stood alone in the plaza, surrounded by 10,000 armed soldiers. No one fired. No one moved. The entire city seemed to hold its breath. The woman looked around calmly, as if she were visiting a park rather than facing an army. Then she began to walk toward the imperial palace. The soldiers parted before her without being ordered to do so. Something in her manner, in her complete lack of fear, made them step aside as she passed. She walked through the palace gates and into the great entrance hall. Servants and guards watched her with wide eyes. She continued without hesitation, navigating the corridors as if she had walked them 1,000 times before. Perhaps she had studied the palace layout. Perhaps her ship had scanned the building. It did not matter. She knew where she was going. Emperor Kaldros waited for her in the throne room. He sat on the ancient seat that had been occupied by his ancestors for 12,000 years, wearing the ceremonial robes of his office, trying to maintain some dignity in the face of complete defeat. His guards stood along the walls, their weapons drawn but their hands trembling. The human woman walked into the throne room and stopped at the foot of the raised platform where the emperor sat. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other. The ruler of the galaxy's greatest empire, and the representative of a species that had been dismissed as primitive just 3 centuries ago. "I am Elena Chen," the woman said. "I speak for humanity. I am Emperor Kaldros VII. I rule the Valorian Empire. I know who you are. I know what your people have done. I know about the 247 humans taken from our world 3 centuries ago. I know about the experiments. I know about the deaths. I know about the descendants who still live in your research facilities." The emperor lowered his gaze. "Those actions were taken before my time. I did not order them." "No. But you are responsible for the empire that committed them. You are responsible for the systems that allowed them. And you are responsible for what happens next. General Vorath acted without my authorization when he fired the Celestial Lance. He has been arrested and will face justice. That is your internal matter. I am not here to discuss your general." "Then why are you here? To destroy us? To take revenge for what was done to your people?" Elena Chen looked at the emperor with an expression that was difficult to read. There was anger in her eyes, but also something else. Something that might have been pity. "Do you know what happened to humanity after your people visited our world?" she asked. "Your survey team came, they studied us, they took their specimens, and they left. They dismissed us as primitives who would never amount to anything. Level 2 civilization, they called us. Too backward to matter." The emperor said nothing. "After your people left, we continued to grow. We developed better technology. We reached our moon, then our neighboring planets, then the outer reaches of our solar system, and eventually we discovered that we were not alone in the universe. We found traces of your survey team's visit. We learned that other species existed beyond our world. So you developed faster than expected. That does not explain how you achieved such advanced technology in only 3 centuries." Elena smiled slightly. "You assume technology is the goal? It is not. Technology is just a tool. The goal is understanding, and humans are very good at understanding things." She took a step closer to the throne. The guards moved to intercept her, but the emperor raised his hand to stop them. "We spent 3 centuries searching for our missing people," Elena continued. "We knew they had been taken. We found the records your survey team tried to hide, and we became obsessed with finding them. That obsession drove us to develop technologies that your empire never imagined. We did not build weapons to conquer the galaxy. We built tools to search for our lost children. And now you have found them. Yes, they are in your research facility 7 on the moon of Valoria Tertius. 43 individuals descended from the original specimens. They have been kept alive for genetic harvesting. They do not know they are human. They do not know there is a world out there waiting for them." The emperor felt shame wash over him. He had not known the details of what was being done in those facilities. He had not asked. The research programs had continued for centuries, passed down from administration to administration, and no one had ever questioned them. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "I want our people back, all of them. I want complete records of everything that was done to them and their ancestors. I want your empire to acknowledge what happened and to ensure it never happens again. And in exchange, humanity will not destroy you." The words hung in the air. simple and direct and terrifying. "We could have destroyed your fleet," Elena said. "We could have cracked your throne world. We could have scattered your empire across the stars and left nothing but ruins. We have that power. We proved it by deflecting your celestial lance. Why didn't you?" Elena looked at him for a long moment before answering. "Because destruction is easy, building is hard, revenge is satisfying for a moment, but it solves nothing. We came here seeking justice, not vengeance." She climbed the steps to stand before the throne, looking down at the emperor who had ruled the galaxy. "Humanity has learned something in our centuries of growth. Power means nothing if you only use it to destroy. The true measure of strength is what you choose to do when you have the ability to do anything. We could crush you. We choose not to. That choice is our greatest achievement." The emperor stared at her. In all his years of rule, he had never encountered a species like this. Every other civilization the empire had faced had either surrendered in fear or fought with desperate fury. None had shown this strange combination of overwhelming power and deliberate restraint. "What happens if I refuse your terms, Honawam?" "Ihina, Cern," he asked. Elena smiled sadly. "You will not refuse. You have seen what we can do. You know that fighting us is impossible. And somewhere in your heart, you know that what was done to our people was wrong. You have a chance to make it right. I suggest you take it." She turned and walked back down the steps. "Return our people. Provide the records. Acknowledge humanity as equals. In exchange, we will share our technology with your empire and help you build a better future. Not as conquerors, but as partners." The emperor looked at her, at this small woman who had walked alone into the heart of his empire and spoken to him as an equal. She represented everything his people had underestimated about humanity: their resilience, their determination, their strange belief that mercy was stronger than cruelty. "I accept," he said. Elena nodded. "Then this ends peacefully. Our people will be retrieved within the week. The records will be compiled, and humanity will take its place among the galactic powers, not through conquest but through choice." She walked toward the door of the throne room, then stopped and looked back. "Your empire dominated this galaxy for 12,000 years through fear and power. Perhaps it is time to try something different. Perhaps it is time to lead through wisdom and cooperation. We will help you if you let us." Then she was gone, walking back through the palace, back to her vessel, back to deliver the news that humanity's lost children would finally come home. In the days that followed, the galaxy watched in amazement as the Valorian Empire kept its word. The human descendants were located and gently prepared for transfer. Records were compiled and shared. Diplomatic channels were established. And humanity took its place among the stars, not as conquerors or destroyers, but as builders and partners. The other species of the galaxy, those who had lived under Valorian rule for millennia, saw what had happened. They saw that a single ship had humbled the greatest military power in history. They saw that the humans had won not through violence, but through restraint. And they began to hope that things might change. Humanity had not ignited a new galactic battle. They had ended one that had been going on for 12,000 years. The battle between strength and wisdom, between power and compassion, between the old ways and the new. And for the first time in recorded history, compassion had won. The galaxy would never be the same, but perhaps, just perhaps, it would be better.